What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's my team selection for Game Week 28, where I'm going to run you through my chip strategy, how the team is looking, thoughts on a 4-point hit for my team, why you're going to absolutely hate my bench, and future moves for Salah. And I'll also take you through how I did in Game Week 27. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And just to let you know that this video has been sponsored by NordVPN. All the links you need to get signed up are in the description below. More to come on that later. All right, let's start with Game Week 27, which was a really good week for me. I finished on 88 points total, which was enough to stop the run of red arrows, the small run of red arrows that I was on, and take me back inside the top 50k. So I think I went up about 20,000 places. And apart from Solanke, every other player in my first 11 returned. And it was such a good week that 3 of my 4 players on the bench also returned as well. It would have been a really decent week to use the bench boost because Areola's 13, Fernandez got 5, Doughty got 5 as well, and then Taylor 1. Like 24 points on a single game week bench boost, I'd absolutely take that, especially then being able to plan around the wild card and free hit without having to also have a bench later on in the season. That being said, I never realistically looked at that. I did briefly mention it on the deadline stream when someone asked about their bench boost, but it was never an option, so I can't really complain or worry about that at all. But yeah, in the first 11, 10 out of 11 return. Obviously, Solanke blanking against Burnley was a bit disappointing. He didn't particularly play that well, but I'm not worried about him or anything like that. Watkins, 2 goals against Luton. Haaland got 1 goal against United. Foden obviously got 2. Palmer chipped in with an assist. Son and Saka, 7 points each. I mean, with Saka, captainers can probably feel a bit unlucky that he went off at half-time. Apparently he was sick or ill or something like that. But I guess getting 7 points in 45 minutes is also pretty nice. But what could have been if he'd stayed on the pitch? And obviously, double Arsenal defence against Sheffield United was about as guaranteed a clean sheet as you're ever going to get. I mean, nothing is ever fully guaranteed in football. We know that. But, you know, going into that, you expected a clean sheet. And Conor Bradley, clean sheet for Liverpool and a couple of bonus points as well. And obviously, Dubravka got the 7 points in goal. Would I have rather played Areola? Of course, because once a goalkeeper gets a penalty save, they almost always come away with top bonus as well, just because of the way the bonus system works. But I feel like that was a good decision. Like, a lot of people asked me last week why I was playing Dubravka over Areola, and I was a bit confused by how many times I got that question. In the end, right, I get it because Areola's gone and got 13 points, but picking the goalkeeper that got the clean sheet, like, that is what you want to do every week, right? So I feel like that was a good decision, even though it was 6 points down on bench and Areola. So really good week after the blank game week 26. I'm starting to get my thoughts together on chip strategy now. The team looks pretty well set for Game Week 28 as well, although I'm going to need a couple of transfers. Let's talk about it in a second. So happy to say that this video is brought to you by NordVPN. In fact, do you remember a couple of weeks ago when I was making Game Week 25 content from a shed? Well, that was while using NordVPN. Why? Because it keeps you safe online, and if you want to do the same, use the link in the description to get 4 extra months, and it's risk-free with their 30-day money-back guarantee. I used NordVPN because I was using a Wi-Fi network I couldn't be sure wouldn't be compromised and didn't want anyone spying on my data. I use public Wi-Fi a lot, and the great thing about NordVPN is there are dedicated apps for all major platforms, so I can use this on my laptop and on my phone, and it's so quick to connect to just about anywhere in the world. As someone who lives in Ireland, there's also plenty of content from other countries around the world, which is often blocked. Using NordVPN allows me to access that content, which I wouldn't usually be able to do. NordVPN is much more than that, though. It shields you from malware, trackers, and ads, as well as having the NordPass password manager to keep your passwords safe, as well as loads more. To start protecting your own online activity, check out NordVPN today using the link in the description. You get 4 extra months, and it's risk-free with their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just before I run through what the team is looking like for Game Week 28, I should go through what my chip strategy is going to be, because that's going to play a part in what transfers I make in Game Week 28. So I've got 1 free transfer this week. I currently have 2 double game week players, which are Doughty and Solanke. The chips that I have left are free hit, wildcard, and bench boost. I've used my triple captain in Game Week 25, which didn't go quite according to plan, but it's gone now. I can't worry about that. And I've got 5 players for blank Game Week 29, which are Areola, Taylor, Doughty, Son, and Watkins. So in my opinion, free hit 29 is going to be my best option, and then I save the wild card for after the blank game week. That doesn't mean that your chip strategy is incorrect, because everyone's team is different, as we know, as we mention a million times every season. I think wildcard 28, free hit 34 is good. I've seen some people doing wildcard 28, free hit 29. There's obviously just running through 29 with 8, 9, 10 players and then just wildcarding afterwards. They can all work depending on how your team is set up. But for mine, only having 5 players for the blank, one of them being Charlie Taylor, even if I take a -8, right, to get up to 9 players, that's an 8-point hit. And I've got to bring in Luton players this week rather than Bournemouth ones who could be beneficial down the line. It might end up being, in hindsight, that taking that -8, ignoring Bournemouth players, going for Luton, and just saving all my chips for afterwards works out better. But I just don't think there's enough reason not to use a chip right now for my team. It lets me get a better team for game week 28, and I get 11 players for 29. And I think the overall points I gain from that will be enough to warrant free hitting in 29. In terms of when I'm going to use the wild card, the idea right now would be a late one, so wild card 35 or 36. The reason for that is because in game week 34 we're expecting some double game week, so I can dead end into that, maybe bring some Newcastle, Man United players in if they double that week, and then wild card out of it whilst also preparing for the game week 37 bench boost. Am I completely happy about wild carding that late in the season? Not really, especially 36, because that means it's only got 3 game weeks to work, and there's a lot of pressure on that. But if the bench boost in double game week 37 goes as we would hope, with 4 double game week players on the bench, then it could be big, right? It might be a complete flop, but I think with how my team looks right now, that's probably the right way to go. If we get to game week 30 or 31, and the fixtures have fallen in a way where it makes sense to wildcard earlier, then I can just do that, right? The wildcard is just a bit more flexible, I would say, than the free hit. And I also think that saving the wildcard means less things can go wrong because you can adapt to those fixtures. Whereas if I wildcard now from a team that already looks pretty good for 28, and then I save the free hit for 34, there are scenarios where there's no double game weeks in 34, or very few, and then the free hit won't be needed, and people will probably pivot to either free hitting in 37 or maybe even in 38, and I just don't think I'm going to need that for my team. So that is my chip strategy. I'm pretty committed to it at this point. I've got a wildcard 28 draft just waiting in case there's loads of injury news on Friday and suddenly my team doesn't look very good. I'm more than happy to wildcard this week if I need to, but I think looking at it, free hit 29 is best. So let's look at the squad. So as well as one free transfer this week, I've got 2.5 million in the bank, which sounds pretty nice, especially when I've already got the likes of Son, Saka, Foden and Haaland in my team. But there's this guy, you may have heard of him, Mohamed Salah, pretty good at football, not bad for FPL either. Apparently, he's back in the Liverpool squad for their Europa League game tonight. And if he gets minutes and then plays against Man City, comes through injury-free, I'm probably going to want him pretty soon. So I'll discuss him a bit more later on. But that 2.5 million is not going to go very far when I've got to get in someone that costs so much money, right? So Salah is in the back of my mind when I'm thinking about transfers this week. In goal, it's Areola against Burnley at home or Dubravka against Chelsea away. Really easy decision. I'm just playing Areola. I don't think anyone would argue with that. I've had Doughty in my team for a few weeks now. Palace away, Bournemouth away, double game week for Luton. Do I expect a clean sheet? Not really, right? Is it possible? Of course, but I'm not expecting it. But I think the outside shot of a clean sheet plus his attacking potential means I've got to play him, especially when my other options are Charlie Taylor and Conor Bradley, who's playing against Man City. And then my other, who are both on the bench, by the way, and then the other 2 defenders are double Arsenal, Gabriel and Saliba, who have been really good to me, even in the weeks where they haven't got points. I've said this before. I feel like they've helped me because I've just not had to worry about them. The underlying numbers have always been there, so I've never had an issue playing one or both of them, and that's allowed me to concentrate transfers elsewhere. So they've got Brentford at home. Look, there's always a good chance of a clean sheet for Arsenal defenders. We know how good Tony, etc. are, so maybe Brentford can score in that game. But I'm not worried about having to play them both. That being said, I am probably going to make a defender transfer this week and bench Saliba, and that will be to bring in a Bournemouth defender, probably for Charlie Taylor, but maybe for Conor Bradley. I don't want to get too much. I don't want to go into too much detail about that decision, but essentially, the last we heard on Trent Alexander-Arnold was that he'd be back after the international break, which would be game week 30. But there's part of me thinking, what if he's not back for that Brighton game? Then I'm happy to play Bradley. And then the Sheffield United game, it's a midweek game week for game week 31. And they play again on Thursday. So if Trent doesn't make the Brighton game, is he definitely going to start against Sheffield United? Not necessarily. So I kind of want to carry Connor Bradley through for that, even though I know that Charlie Taylor is at least nailed, even if he's not going to get me a huge amount of points. But it's probably going to be Charlie Taylor to a Bournemouth defender. And I will almost certainly go for Zabani. I will just go for the safeties. 4.4 million, played every minute so far this season. Like, could Kirkes be a bit more attacking? Sure. Could Adam Smith be a bit more attacking? Sure. But if Max Aarons is back soon, or Kelly is back and Kirkes comes out of the team, I just don't want that headache later on. And part of the reason to bring in a Bournemouth defender this week is, of course, for the double game week. But then I'm free hitting in 29, so that game week doesn't matter. And then they've got Everton at home, Palace at home, and Luton away. And if I had to play a Bournemouth defender in any of those fixtures, I wouldn't be particularly worried. And for my team, my current defence, double Arsenal, Charlie Taylor, Doughty, and Bradley. In game week 30, the fixtures are Man City away for Arsenal, Chelsea away for Taylor, Spurs away for Doughty, and for Connor Bradley, it's Brighton at home, but he might not even be an option at that point because Trent could be back. So I think getting a Bournemouth defender in makes a lot of sense, and I would bench Saliba. Now, I should probably just leave it at that, but I'm considering taking a -4. Probably not for another defender, but for the goalkeeper instead, and just go for Neto and just bench Areola, or even sell him potentially. It doesn't sound great. Like, is a -4 worth it when Areola's got Burnley at home? I'm not completely convinced, right, as you can probably tell. And I am partially worried about what score Areola could rack up. We just saw him get 13 points away to Everton. Obviously, a lot of that was because of the penalty save, but he's more than capable to get a clean sheet against Burnley, rack up saves, get a few bonus, and all of a sudden Neto's got to get 2 clean sheets just to match that. And I do think there's a chance it doesn't happen. The reason that I'm considering it still, but despite what I've just said, is because Bournemouth might double in game week 34. And so getting Neto in for the double this week, some pretty good fixtures afterwards, although the Dubravka Areola rotation's not bad from 30 onwards, and then a potential double in 34, which would be Villa away and Wolves away, I think. Like, that would be pretty decent. From what Ben Crellin has said, who's one of the fixture gurus always predicting this type of stuff, he thinks that if Brighton beat Roma in the Europa League, the chances of Bournemouth doubling in 34 rather than 37 are pretty high. So if Brighton... So the first leg is tonight, right? It's over 2 legs. So the result won't be done and dusted tonight. But if Brighton happen to have a healthy lead against Roma after tonight's game, then I'll probably just chance it and do the -4 for Neto, right? So bring in Neto and Zabani and just get rid of or bench Areola. Just quickly on which goalkeeper I would sell, there is a chance that Newcastle will have a double in 34 as well. Although, to be fair, if I'm bringing in Neto, that really doesn't matter for me. But if Neto doesn't double and Newcastle does, then I'd rather have the Dubravka and Neto combination, if that makes sense. I'm probably just confusing things now. The problem is Nick Pope might be back by game week 34, in which case Dubravka just wouldn't be an option. So I feel like probably the right decision is to sell Dubravka and just keep Areola. But I don't know. I look at the fixtures after game week 30 for West Ham. Like, it's Newcastle away, so I would play Neto over Areola. Spurs at home in 31, I'd play Neto over Areola. Neto's got Luton away in 32. West Ham have got Wolves away, which may be a slightly tougher fixture. It depends on how many of their attackers are out injured. And then 33 is Fulham at home for West Ham. And for Bournemouth, it is Man United at home. So yeah, I'd probably rather play Areola in 33. It's only 1 game week. So part of me is thinking, do I just sell Areola, hope that Nick Pope's not back by 34, and then if I've got Dubravka and Neto, I've hopefully guaranteed myself a double game week goalkeeper for game week 34. So I'm not quite decided on that, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to do Taylor to Zabani, and then maybe Areola or Dubravka, probably Dubravka, but I'm not completely sure on that, to Neto. But if not, there's a different -4 I could take, and that's in my midfield. So let's talk about that. So I'm going to start with the obvious stuff in midfield and leave the elephant in the room, which is why Bruno Fernandes is in my first 11 and Foden's on the bench until a little bit later. So other midfielders I've got, Palmer against Newcastle at home, Son against Villa away, and Saka against Brentford at home. Not too much to say about any of them. At this point, we know they are guaranteed to start. The minutes are good. They all take penalties as well. They are fantastic FPL picks. They all have pretty good fixtures this week. Like, Villa away for Son is not super easy, but he will get chances. I'm expecting Richarlison to be out, so Son will play through the middle again. Obviously, Newcastle defence hasn't been fantastic. They got the clean sheet against Wolves, but I wouldn't be particularly worried about playing against them. And although Saka came off at half-time against Sheffield United, it'd be really surprising if he doesn't start. And Brentford defence hasn't been watertight either. So all three good picks. I'm free hitting in 29, so the fact that Arsenal and Chelsea blank that week doesn't matter. And in game week 30, Son has Luton at home, Palmer has Burnley at home, and although Saka has Man City away, in 31, it's Luton at home. So there's just no need to worry about any of those players. Later on, thinking ahead, if Man United and Newcastle have a double game week in 34, I might want to bring in midfielders from those two teams. And that means I might have to make a tricky decision about who to sell. But that is really just something to worry about later. For now, they stay in the team. Just on the Foden benching, right? It's not something that I would necessarily say everyone else should do, right? I get it. He's done really well recently. He was on the bench last night in Man City's Champions League game. He's going to start against Liverpool. He's in incredible form right now. Liverpool are missing some players as well. We know Man City's scoring pretty much every game they play in. Playing Foden for most people is going to be an easy decision. But I do think, right, and I don't think anyone can really disagree with this, even with some of the injuries that Liverpool have had and have got at the moment, that is still a tougher fixture away than playing Everton at home. And I know that Foden is the better FPL pick right now than Fernandes, but I think in this case, the penalties and the fixture maybe trumps it a little bit. And I know everyone's going to say it's Man United bias, etc., despite the fact that I benched Fernandes last week and played Phil Foden over him. But this week, I just feel like if I've got those two players in my team, I'm going to go for the differential because Foden is massively owned. And look, if he goes off against Liverpool, which he's more than capable of doing, that's going to really hurt because his ownership is so high. But if he doesn't, and Liverpool give Man City a bit of a match and they make it tough for them, then all of a sudden I've got a big differential who might play awful against Everton, but pick up a penalty and a couple of bonus points, and suddenly I'm laughing. So I think it's a risk. And I think if I'm thinking about the chances that playing Fernandes over Foden works out, I don't know, maybe it's not that high, especially given how the two teams are playing at the moment. But I just think the fixtures and the penalties is going to trump it for me. So as it stands, if I take the -4 in defence, I'm probably going to play Bruno Fernandes over Foden. And I'm already picturing my Gameweek 29 team selection where I'm saying, yeah, that was a mistake. I should have just played Foden. He's great. But that's how the team is set up right now. I could take a different -4 to the one I've already talked about, though. I think the defender transfer is pretty much locked in. I'm going to bring in Zabani. It's the goalkeeper I'm not sure about. I could sell a midfielder to Tavernier, Kluivert from Bournemouth, or Barkley from Luton, and that would give me enough money to get Salah in, right? So I'll just show you how that would work. I would probably sell Bruno Fernandes over Foden this week, even though Fernandes has got a chance of doubling in 34. I'd probably sell him because after 29, it's Chelsea away in 31, Liverpool at home in 32. Whereas for Man City, Foden's fixtures, it's Villa at home in 30, Palace away in 32, Luton at home in 33. So longer term, I probably would sell Fernandes first. So if I sell him to, let's just say Barkley, right, and I do the Taylor to Zabani move as well, that gives me 5.2 million to spend. So basically, any of Saka, Foden or Son could then be sold to Salah in one move, right? Because Salah is still, I think he's 13 million. Yeah, 13 million. So I could get Salah in one move. But, of course, not only do I have to get someone like Barkley in this week, which I don't really mind, right? He's got the double game week. It would also mean having to sell one of Saka, Foden and Son. And given the fixtures they've got, it's not necessarily something that I want to do. So part of the reason that I'm considering doing the defensive -4 instead is because I'm not quite sure what I want to do with this midfield, and I almost want to put the decision off a little bit later. Maybe one of them gets injured, and that decision's really easy to bring Salah in. Maybe Salah comes back against Man City, plays, but in the couple of matches Liverpool have got after that, maybe he picks up another injury, and I don't need to bring in Salah, in which case I can just keep all of these midfielders. So I just feel like, essentially, I think the midfield decision in terms of transfers, not who I'm playing this week, could go wrong. I could sell the wrong midfielder, And I just don't know if there's enough upside in Kluivert, Tavernier, or Barkley to risk it, essentially. Because I know what people are going to say. Salah's super fit. Once he's playing, he's going to be fine. Look what happened last time. He came back from injury. I'm pretty sure they did not want to play Salah that long in that game. It's just that Jota went off injured. And then he's been out for a couple of games again. So it's not a guarantee that he comes back this time and is fully fit and just plays every single game. So I kind of want to put that decision off. Also, I feel like for game week 28 and someone that's free hitting in 29, where I don't need Luton players, Tavernier is probably the one I should go for. But the problem with that is it doesn't leave me enough money to do Salah in one move. It only leaves me 4.8 million in the bank, which even if I sell Foden would give me only 12.9. So then I'd have to sell Saka or Son. I don't want to put myself in that position. So I like Tavernier. I like Kluivert as a punt. I like Barkley, especially if you're not free hitting in 29. But for my team, I think I leave that midfield decision open and just play Bruno Fernandes instead of Foden. Because Fernandes might double in 34, so I might have a route to keep hold of him. And I don't know, maybe Salah doesn't play all the minutes over Liverpool's games and we're a bit worried about him, and maybe I just decide not to get him and just risk that he doesn't score a hat-trick against Sheffield United. I don't know, I know the ideal situation, just to finish this ramble here now about my midfield and transfers, the ideal situation in FPL is to know exactly what you're going to do, because then you can focus your transfers. But I also don't think leaving your options open is a bad idea, especially when you're not sure. And I just don't think a Bournemouth or Luton midfielder is so essential this week that I need to decide how I'm going to get Salah back in. So I think I'm going to do the defensive -4, the Neto and Zabani, and probably keep this midfield. And if I can go through with it and not lose my bottle, I guess, I'm going to play Fernandes over Foden. And then, as has been the case for a few weeks now, the forwards are the most simplest part of my squad to talk about. So I've got Haaland against Liverpool away, Watkins against Spurs at home, and then Solanke with the double game week of Sheffield United at home and Luton at home. So none of those three players are going to be sold this week. I've seen at least one comment on one of my recent videos, plus we had some questions on Sunday's stream about whether I would play Foden over Haaland. And look, Foden's been great recently, right? He's a really good FPL pick. There's no reason to bench him if you don't want to or don't need to. But the idea that he's a better FPL pick all of a sudden than Haaland, I think is nonsense. Like, Haaland's goal threat and penalties alone, plus his minutes, are enough. You just don't mess with that. If you've got him, he's in your team. I mean, I'm not saying you should bench Foden for someone like Fernandes, again, if you don't want to for your own team. But benching Haaland for Foden, definitely no chance of that. Watkins, his time in my team might be coming to an end soon-ish, but it's certainly not anything to worry about this week, even with the free hit in 29. That Spurs defence will give up some chances. And then Solanke's a no-brainer, right, with the double game week. I know that some people are slightly concerned about triple captaining him because he was a doubt going into game week 27. We know he's got this knee issue that he's playing through. That would worry me more if it had kept him out of matches. I know he's missed a couple of FA Cup games, but in terms of his league minutes, he started every game and played 90 minutes since game week 22. And according to what was said about that knee issue, it's been happening since game week 20. So it hasn't affected his minutes. He has scored goals in that time as well. That double game week is just too good to turn down. So for me, it's an easy decision. I don't have my triple captain anymore, so Solanke will be my captain. If I had the triple captain, I'd probably use it on him, but we'll discuss that in final thoughts tomorrow. So that's the forward line. Just on Watkins, because some people are probably wondering, well, what are you on about? Why are you going to sell him? Obviously, for game week 30, Wolves at home, so no issue having him for that. Then it's Man City away in 31, Arsenal away in 33. And I just think, if I want to get Salah in, but I don't want to sell too many of my other midfielders to fund it, maybe I fund it by selling Watkins instead. So rather than having to sell Fernandes and Foden, maybe I only sell one of those, plus I sell Watkins instead. It's just a consideration. I know a lot of people are screaming at the screen right now saying Watkins is a season keeper, etc. I get it, right? He's brilliant. I'm not in a rush to sell him. I'm just saying it could potentially happen soon. So I don't think there's anything else to discuss. My probable moves are Taylor to Zabani and one of my goalkeepers to Neto for a -4. I think that sets me up a little bit better from game week 30. Outside shot of a double for Bournemouth in 34 as well. I'm going to captain Solanke, and I'm probably going to play Fernandes over Foden. Although every time I say it, it sounds a bit more stupid. But that's kind of how I've got it set up right now. I feel like there was something else I meant to say about my forwards. but I don't think there's any issues right now. Yeah. Anyway, I'm sure that's good. If not, I'll just cover it in final thoughts tomorrow. If you enjoyed that video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button, rate 5 stars if you listen on podcast. Don't forget to check out NordVPN as well. Links in the description to get signed up for that. I'll catch you again tomorrow.